We've got Mary Ann, how do you say it?
Gowler.
Mary Ann Gowler, and this is the healing power of paint and pen.
Thank you, George. And good afternoon, Bramwell, West Virginia. And thank you for having me here at your beautiful Healing Through Creativity Festival. I'm very happy to be here today, and I'm also honored to be amongst so many fine people. My name is Mary Ann Gowler, and I'd like to share my personal story with you, along with how the healing power of paint and pen has helped me to rebuild myself, my soul, my spirit, my heart, and my life, gradually taking me from a survivor to a thriver. I was born, raised, and still live in the countryside of western Pennsylvania. I am a self-employed, self-taught artist, writer, speaker, mental health advocate, and educator who has struggled with schizophrenia basically all my life. I've been married 20 years to a wonderful man, have a terrific dog that helped me get through the day. That's Dottie. I love nature, and I'd like to offer support and hope to all those who suffer from mental health concerns while trying to let the stigma attached to it. I love life, try to live it to the fullest, and have lots of stories to tell. I consider myself very fortunate to be deemed high functioning, and I speak for those who cannot. I spent the first 30 years of my existence barely talking, only speaking the usual pleasantries or just shaking and nodding my head. I just came out about having schizophrenia 3 years ago to my family and friends and anyone who would listen to me. I seem to always have to explain the difference between my disorder and multiple personality disorder. Schizophrenia is not the same as multiple personality disorder, which is a common myth, especially in the United States. So I can assure you that I am the only person speaking to you right now. As defined in the North American English version of the Encarta Dictionary, schizophrenia is a severe psychiatric disorder with symptoms of emotional instability, detachment from reality, and withdrawal into self. In other words, it is sometimes difficult to tell the difference between real and unreal experiences, to think logically, to have normal emotional responses, and to behave normally in social situations. In the United States, schizophrenics occupy more hospital beds than patients suffering from cancer, diabetes, and heart attacks. At any given time, they account for up to half the beds in long-term care facilities. I grew up in a blue-collar family, the second of 3 children. My brother is 2 years older than me, and my sister is 3 years younger. And yes, I am the dreaded middle child. I knew at a very young age that I was different. I can remember at age 5 when my mother would try to get me up to take a nap. I would just lie down on the couch, we sat beneath the window, and I would see my kindergarten teacher peeking in on me through the window to see if I was asleep. When I was about 8, I used my X-ray vision when I had to choose between which color shirt I wanted to wear that day. I would just stop and stare for 15, 20 minutes, finally making a decision and coming out of my trance. It was calming for me. All these pictures and photographs and everything you see up here is created by me, either my original art or doodles on an iPad or sketches. I had a fairly normal life up until the age of 7 or 8. My dad became very sick, his hair started to fall out by the clumps. He went away for what seemed an eternity, but in reality it was only about a month. I found out years later that he was in an out-of-state hospital, but no explanation was given to any of his kids. But the man who came back to our house was not my dad. This man was hairless and as mean as the Dickens. There were repeated beatings for the silliest of things. My mother's behavior had changed also. She began putting food in the abandoned garage next door. She kept talking about aliens, and as time went on, her beliefs in these odd theories continued to worsen and impair her view on reality. She believed and still believes that she was conceived by those aliens. Even though she was still alive, I had lost my mom too. She had to take my dad's side or she would get abused, verbally, emotionally, and physically. There were many nights when the three of us kids would be in bed, silent, as we listened downstairs to what was happening. Again, not a word was ever spoken between any of us. I would have taken my mother's place any time. I felt sorry for her. I can remember the first few beatings I received. I cried, and then I thought, this is ridiculous. And I'm not going to cry anymore. So the next beating came, and I didn't cry. And my dad said, I'm going to beat you until you cry. And I thought to myself, go ahead. And I'm not going to give you satisfaction. And I never cried again. That's about the time I decided to hide from my dad. I knew his schedule by heart. And if I couldn't go outside when he was around, I would retreat to our finished basement. I loved school and sports. They gave me structure, something I desperately needed. But things didn't get much better while I was successfully completing each grade and excelling in basketball. In fact, they got a whole lot worse. I had become awfully anxious, scared of everything and anything. I never knew who was going to turn on me and when. I yearned for love, affection, and support. The messages I received from my abusers were just the opposite. I tried so extremely hard to be a decent, respectable young woman, but nothing changed. I started hiding more and more. The basement was my favorite refuge. It was pretty nice down there, and no one bothered me if I was quiet. My dad did catch me a few times down there. Once when, as a child, I was drawing him a Father's Day picture. He snatched my sketch, looked at me, and I could feel his rage as he shouted, "Nobody wants your stupid drawing." Then he proceeded to shred it right in front of me. Needless to say, I was devastated once again, and I thought, why do I even try? But I rebounded. I came across some leftover pieces of scrap wood and created a small desk in the corner where I taught myself how to draw. I liked it there by myself. You know, it wasn't just the beatings that were abusive, but the emotional load too. I felt like I wasn't wanted, and it hurt. It really hurt. Nothing I did was ever good enough. I was called all sorts of degrading names at home, and it had a profound effect on my performance at school my senior year. And my friends noticed that I was acting a little different. I became more and more withdrawn at home, school, and social events. People said I was backwards, and minor happenings would spark my anger. I was absolutely clueless as to why this was happening to me. It needed to change if I was going to have any chance at a little happiness in my life. At least I found something I enjoyed, and it took my mind off all that crap that was happening to me, and it was drawing. Here are some pictures of some old drawings I did. I was so confused I had nowhere to turn because of trust issues. What an awful life. All I could think of doing was to keep two separate lives. One at school where I was appreciated, admired, and even respected by my peers, and my dreadful secret existence at home. I snuck art classes into my curriculum whenever I could, even when I entered college. I remember my first oil painting in high school. I thought it was awful. But my mom saved it, and she told me years later that she saw it as beautiful. So thank you, Mom. In my second year of college, my symptoms began to change drastically. My mind was gradually deteriorating. All of the stress, anxiety, and angst from my childhood had finally caught up with me. I started self-medicating with alcohol and drugs. I kept my grades good enough for a while, but things just kept getting worse. I was anxious all the time. Eventually, I stopped going to class and was kicked out. Having nowhere to go but back home, My exceedingly angry dad gave me 1 week to find a job or I'd be out in the streets. It just so happened I went to softball practice that night and one of the girls on the team asked me if I needed a job. I had an interview 2 days later and was fortunate enough to land a part-time job at Dow Jones & Company, publishers of the Wall Street Journal. I was 21. The hours were ridiculous, but I didn't care, I just needed a job. I worked 7 days a week, from noon to 3, and then went back from 6 p.m. until 1 a.m. I did that for 5 years. I knew if I worked hard enough that there was room for advancement. After 2 years on the job, all hell broke loose. I had my first major psychotic break at age 23. What the hell was going on? I was extremely paranoid. There were spies everywhere. I heard voices and screaming non-stop. This pain, smack dab in the middle of my forehead. Why was it there? And why was it the bullet hole? I had phantom pains of being beaten on my back, buttocks, legs, and they hurt. I couldn't breathe without thinking about breathing. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't tell my parents for fear of my dad beating me. I thought I was being punished by God for being bad all of my life. I certainly couldn't see a therapist. They would definitely think I was crazy, put me in a mental institution and throw away the keys. I was crazy. I needed my job. It was the only way out. I didn't want to be locked away, nor did I want to be on the streets. So I went to work day after day after day for 5 long years without ever telling a soul, with those symptoms, along with many others, persisting 24 hours, 7 days a week. All along the way, I kept getting promoted, and each day I pulled myself up off the couch and forced myself to go to work. In my mind, there was no other choice. I had gone untreated for so long, I just couldn't take it anymore. So I called our local mental health center for help. While I was at the center, they informed all their clients of a hotline that was open around the clock. Well, I was approaching my 30th birthday, and I was having some issues with getting old. I took them up on their offer and called the hotline number. A fellow answered. I'll just refer to him as Ted. He was so sweet to me over the phone. He even said he'd check up on me the following day at my apartment to make sure it was okay. He did come the next day, and as we sat on the couch, he began to touch me inappropriately, sexually seducing me. Ted was about 25 years my senior. Remember, I was new at this therapy thing, and to make a long story short, we ended up having a 6-month affair. I didn't tell my therapist at the time, but I did tell her, but nothing was done anyways. I went undiagnosed until approximately 31 years of age when I was sent to Western Psychiatric in Pittsburgh after many failed stays at local psych units. I was extremely angry. I can remember literally getting furious when the wind would blow the wrong way. I had to change my way of thinking or it was going to be a very long life for me. So I started to look at things differently. I changed the way I thought. And there was a time in my life when I hated to go to work. So I looked at it this way. It was a good job with good pay and benefits. The job gave me an opportunity to do things that I wouldn't normally have access to. Then I thought, if I'm going to be there anyway, I might as well try and be the best printer I could be. I started to learn everything, every little detail of my job. I became a master printer in 3 years. Then, one of the greatest things happened to me. I met my husband. That guy right there. It was during one of my hospital stays. I was walking down the hallway, and there in the gathering room, he was sitting all alone. I'd never done a double take to a man before, but I did this time. He was so handsome, and there was a calmness about him. Bruce was in treatment for depression after going through a divorce. We met, dated, and were married in a year. They said it would never work. You know, if it weren't for Bruce, I wouldn't have started painting. He had seen some drawings I did a long time ago, and he told me how talented I was. I can't see it, but he said I was talented. It was next one up, Bruce? Next one? Okay. Our first 8 years of marriage were tumultuous because I was in and out of the psych ward trying to find the right psychiatrist for me. And just when we thought things had to get better, they got worse. I lost my job along with half my coworkers due to downsizing. And 6 months later, we lost our home in a devastating tornado that ripped through our area. I lost my identity. To me, 2 of the 3 things that made my identity were gone: my job and my home. But I still had the man of my life, and he helped me gain a new identity. He had a drawing table custom built just for me. He bought me an easel and paints. I felt obligated, so I painted and I never stopped. I called this one Little Chickadee. This is Between the Birds. And this one speaks for itself. Painting is one of the greatest ways for me to express myself. I can paint anything I want, any color, and it's never wrong. It can't be, because I'm creating. I love you. I can almost feel the energy running through my veins into my hands, then onto the canvas. It's the greatest feeling. When I paint, I can't think of anything else. I'm totally focused, almost trance-like. Creating through my paintings means everything to me in my recovery. I also love to write about what I paint. I never knew I could write, and that is an excellent outlet for me regarding my recovery as well. It's something I learned in therapy. Writing helps me get through things and gets things in perspective. I feel so fortunate that I have these 2 creative channels. Now I'd like to share some of my paintings and what I write about them. Follow the path. One of my favorite things to do in life is to follow paths, both literally and figuratively. As a result of that, I painted this path through the woods. I chose only black and white for my color scheme because that reminds me of the unknown. I never know where a path might take me. It took me down here this time. And although I am often fearful, I always choose to follow it. I don't want to miss out on any opportunity to see things or to challenge myself in new experiences. This is Scott. Acquaintances of mine have performed a very awe-inspiring act of compassion. They have rescued an abused horse and hold the keys to recovery for the afflicted animal. Not only did they save the destitute soul, but they are providing the ultimate care. I had never painted a horse before, so when I learned of Scott and his saga, I knew I had to portray his story, capture the pain he obviously felt, and additionally depict how he is surviving currently, illustrating his spirit, his suffering, but most of all his unbroken hope. It is written that hope is itself a species of happiness, and perhaps the chief happiness which the world affords. I respectfully pursued a snapshot of my newfound buddy, knowing that we would be spending many hours together, just Scott and me, in my little corner downstairs, with brush in hand and easel waiting. He likes his new home, but he still has trouble walking. He feels like I do sometimes. We still bear the visual scars and the inner heartache. But with each fresh day, we become more in rhythm with the possibilities, and our stride has an unanticipated, surprising beat. We have a bounce in our step, resilience, and our painstaking cadence are beginning to align to allow us to be who we were intended to be. We want to do more, be all we can for those who nudge us with their gentle guidance and unbridled devotion. We are fortunate for the opportunity, blessed for the love we have found, and privileged for the capacity of holding hope in our hearts. This was a very emotional piece for me to paint, to say the least. Solitude. was speaking to a woman the other morning on the phone. I had just been introduced to her. She mentioned that she was sad as she looked out of her office window towards a wooded area. The trees were almost barren. A few other definitions would suggest unproductive, bleak, plain, and empty. I love trees and their beautiful foliage all through the 3 seasons. Spring, as buds appear to remind us that a new chapter is blossoming, maybe a time for a fresh start in our lives. Summer, as the warm breeze whispers to the greenery in ourselves to enjoy just being. Fall, when we are exposed to brilliant colors, perhaps allowing us to reflect on our journey. But for myself, with winter comes the solitude that instills character. There is so much we can learn from the unadorned tree, and as Hal Borland wrote, if you would know strength and patience, welcome the company of trees. As I dare to expand on Mr. Borland's quote, for it is also to know endurance, persistence, perseverance, tenacity, courage, survival, to grow, thrive, and yes, even flourish in the harshest of conditions. A naked tree in the midst of a cold winter's day communicates a multitude of these lessons and beyond. So we too can stand strong as we weather the seasons of our lives. Place yourselves next to one of these magnificent beauties. Touch it, feel it, study it, and learn from it. And maybe, if we allow ourselves to lean on it and be one with nature's splendor, we will be better prepared to lean on ourselves in times of hardship. Oh, lads. I wanted to paint a flower that depicted my appreciation for life. I came upon an assembly of gladiolas. They were so picturesque, clustered together as their lengthy stems and endless blossoms appeared to give permission to the world to beam. I am here for you. Reminisce. See the beauty in your own life. They repeated that proclamation with every bloom. Now I was glad because I had so much to be thankful for. I am thankful for everyone I've ever met because for the better or for the worse, they've helped me become the person I am today. My husband, family, and true friends stay by my side despite my eccentricities. I am loved even when I'm not lovable. Pardon me. I had this piece I entitled All Alone. I had back surgery about 1.5 years ago, and I was put on heavy painkillers, which messed with my psych meds and my head, and I became very depressed. And I wrote this little poem when I was depressed. All alone in a storm, the light begins to fade. My one solid column crumbling for none to see. I've shouted in the darkness, cries low to despair. When will it be over, this melee of morals? This is another poem I wrote. The Child in the Sea. There's something about the sea, maybe the fact that it contains the same percentage of salt as we. There's something about a child, maybe the wonder, the innocence that most of us never knew. Together, the sea and the child, beautiful to me. And this is part of me. My 2 youngest granddaughters are 6 months apart. One loves the color purple, the other color pink. My oldest granddaughter likes darker colors, hence the background. They are all so beautiful to me that I had to paint them as a flower. My favorite color is lime green because it reminds me of the Grinch and how his heart grew so big, just like mine did. So I made the leaves that color so we, the 4 of us, would always be together. I love them so very much. I haven't had much time to paint in the last year because my father became extremely ill and I had to return to my childhood home to help my physically and mentally fragile mother take care of my dying father. You know, life is so strange. I spent most of my life hiding from my dad and his abusiveness, only to come to the end of his life in a way I never thought possible. Miraculously, after an engaging, emotional conversation focused on my relationship with my father, I am at peace with him departing this life. It started with an essential need for me to share my regrets. I felt it necessary to get things off my chest while I knew he was still alert, sharp, and receptive. The topic, once in motion, was not as difficult as I had imagined. I suppose because my mind was made up and the clock was ticking. I felt it not only necessary but a natural obligation for both me, my future, my life, and for my dad as I aspire to grow and thrive and to ultimately become the best person I can become. We can't go back and change anything. Regrets were spoken, forgiveness synchronized, love shared, healing attained. It was something that couldn't be rushed, but I encourage others to do. If I had only known earlier, but as I say, timing is everything. We also spoke of my upcoming birthday, with my only wish being my father moving from this life to the next. Ah, Marushka, you are a good girl, as he gently patted my head with his hand. I haven't heard him speak my cherished childhood name for so long. It was priceless to me. Skip forward. You can go backwards. It's very difficult to watch your father sobbing. He so desperately wants to leave his life. We wait, we watch, we comfort him, we pray, we cry, we laugh, we love. I can't express how I felt when each and every time I gave my dad his medication and cared for him, he patted me on the head so tenderly because of his weakness and said again, Yoakuko Marushka. All I ever wanted in my life is this. My immediate family coming together as one loving family. No silly bickering, just true love for each and every member. And do you want to hear something why we came together? Because of that man, my dad. Isn't it funny how life turns itself around? It has also instilled even further deep into my heart, if you just believe and follow your dreams. Thank you again for having me.